structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
To prevent a house from being demolished through neglect. And a vote.
I was your age. I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
And he's asked to speak for us for a few minutes as to this issue. Mr. Bostic?
Yes. I know you guys are getting really tired of hearing about my old house, and I want you to know that I am committed to moving on with it. I want very much to move on with my life and to be done with it. I've been very open with you guys from the very beginning, and I've been very honest with you. I've taken a lot of heat. I've done it without acting up. I can't say that for everyone. What I've been doing, what I promised you guys, was that I wanted to tear down the garage. I had to get permits and I had to do the work. I do the work myself. I like doing that kind of hard work, but I have to pace myself to keep from getting an injury. I'm an old man. I have removed the garage. It's all completely gone. I understand your concerns about the house. I did not understand your concerns about the garage and felt that it was my prerogative to remove it. It's gone. It's clean. Expect to put the for sale sign up in about 2 weeks. My questions are, well, you've got this demolition by neglect, but what does it do to the new owner? What do I tell the new owner? I was concerned that you were going to push forward. At the last meeting, I was afraid that you were going to push forward with your demolition by neglect while I was trying to finish up and sell the house. I do not want that to happen. What I want to happen, and basically, and I'm going to be real honest with you, I think y'all just need to get out of the way and let me finish up what I'm doing for about 3 weeks, and then you can deal with the new owner.
Thank you.
That's what I have to say about it.
Thank you, Mr. Bostic. Commissioners, be a good time to have a general discussion. I would like one reminder. Tanya, when did this first come up on an agenda for the commission? Was it September? Earlier?
No, it was last year.
If you don't recall, it's okay. But
so it was six months prior to doing the investigation.
okay. So roughly April?
That sounds about right.
Okay. 3 weeks from now, just looking at a calendar, is February the 8th. If I'm reading, whoops, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, yeah, February the 8th. Any thoughts from the commission? Ian?
Can staff address Kent's question about what happens with the new owner should this go forward?
Correct, Tanya here. It would start over. The process would end upon sale, and we would then, if you so chose, ask the Housing and Neighborhoods to start over with the new owner. It would be staff's suggestion that prior to doing that, that you reach out to the new owner with the commission's concerns.
Heather?
I'm just, I'm not sure exactly how this works. This is a different process than I've been here, for us going through in the past. So, I'm just curious, would the new owner know that as soon as they buy the home, there's going to be a potential for a demolition by neglect immediately on them?
Tanya here again. I mean, and no, not immediately. That is why it is staff's suggestion that that the commission reach out informally to a new property owner and just let them know what's going on and sort of gauge what's and let them know what the potential process is.
My concern, because obviously I want to see an old house saved, right? That's always going to be what I want to happen. But is there a concern that someone new is going to buy this house, not having any idea that soon afterwards they might end up having to quickly fix it up in order to avoid their own demolition by neglect case? Is that a possibility, or will they kind of know before they buy it, like, you're going to have to fix this up pretty quickly?
That would be dependent on Mr. Bostic, whether he shared that information or not.
Gotcha. So there is some level of concern that someone could kind of unknowingly buy this house and then suddenly be like, surprise.
No, I'm not going to do that. No, they're going to know what's going on.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking the question. I need to know what's going on. I need to let them know. I'm not trying to cover up a darn thing here. I'm trying to be open, and it isn't easy for me.
Katie?
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Bostic, for, being in contact with us and coming here again today. From my perspective, I would like to see us maybe move this to the next meeting to give Mr. Bostic the extra time to get it on the market, and so that he has an opportunity. This is a hard time for everyone right now, so I understand if he might be a little behind, understandably, on some of the goals and the timeline that we had set out before. So I'd like to see us give to the next meeting for him to have it on the market and then approach it from there.
That's what I would appreciate.
Curtis?
I agree with that.
I concur. And given that the house is in a historic district, part of the disclosure on the part of the real estate agent should be that it is in a historic district. It has to be preserved. So I don't think we gain anything by putting into demolition by neglect on it, as long as we continue to see movement. That's our goal.
The material I'll show them.
Sandy, Travis, Janine, John Reese, anything else to add to the discussion?
And I'm in agreement. We can defer it another month.
Okay. John, okay. I'm having a little trouble reading your.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think Katie has the right process to go through. I agree.
Okay. Sandy, I'm sorry I didn't come back around to you.
I agree as well.
And Janine?
I agree.
All right. Now, the next meeting is the 15th of February. Is there any value to us post dating our decision to the 15th of make a decision now, but make it effective the 15th of February, as opposed to just putting it on the agenda for the 15th of February? Under the category of making sure we all stay focused on what needs to be done. Curtis?
I think rather than getting demolition by neglect on the property, why not we just ask for an update on the 15th?
Okay.
And if there's no forward movement, then we do the demolition by neglect on that date.
All right, I'm seeing faces of all the commissioners, and I'm seeing by their expressions and everything else that I'm seeing in their body language that they're in favor of moving this to the agenda on the next meeting, which is February the 15th. So we're forwarding this, or tabling this matter to the 15th of February at the next meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission. Does anyone object to that, moving it forward? Mr. Bostic, you don't object, do you?
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
And Mr. Bostic?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We appreciate your cooperation and we encourage you to move rapidly. All right. Next item on the agenda is rezoning cases on the 307, 313 West Martin and other properties. It's the second item on the agenda under the item B under UDO reviews. The recommended action is whether to recommend approval or denial of the application. Aaron and John Agnost are the lead staff members on this. Could you briefly put us back in the seat of where we are on this, please?
I'm going to unmute Aaron again. Oh, there she goes.
Sure. Hey, good morning, everyone. So this is a case that we reviewed together at the December meeting and deferred the decision just to get a little bit more information and clarity on amended conditions from the applicant. So the applicant has now provided those amended conditions, and the attachments in board docs sort of enumerate those changes. They're in a new format, so we just gave you the amended conditions as is, and then at the bottom of the staff report attached an appendix in an attempt to demonstrate the differences in the current conditions versus the conditions initially brought forward in 2018. Among some of your concerns at the last meeting were the potential for new construction up to a height of 5 stories to be built over top of the existing contributing historic buildings in the Depot District. So there's been a condition added to specifically prohibit that, as well as language on materials that would be used both on the existing historic buildings and in additions. And John Anagnost is here. He's the rezoning case planner. So if you've got any questions, he can certainly speak to those as well.
Just one initial question. Are there any conditions requested by staff that weren't agreed to by the applicant? John?
Aaron, not to my knowledge. And from the RHDC perspective, that would be conditions requested directly from the commission at our previous meeting that would be applicable.
And Tanya here, Aaron is not privy to the attendee list. I do not see John on the call, but I am, but the applicant's attorney and other people are.
Right, and maybe I could direct this, well, let's first just, any questions so far? I was going to go to the applicant and see if they have any issues that they need to tell us about that have evolved since the last time we heard this matter and asked for additional commissions. Are we good to go to make a decision? Commission? Raise your hand if you have additional questions at this point. The applicant, I guess it's going to be, is it going to be Mark or Jamie or Luke or Jason or Eli? Who wants to speak to make your closing argument here if you have one? Anything we need to be told before we have a motion?
Sure. This is Jamie Schwegler at Parker Poe. I'm happy to just kind of set the framework and then let Fred Belladin comment on any of the substantive changes. But to answer your question, we do believe the revised conditions go to the heart of the concerns that were raised by the commission last month. namely that there was some confusion over the fate of the buildings, were they to be preserved versus what would happen in a reconstruction in the case of disaster. And so we reorganized that to make the intent more clear, and then added conditions to speak to each of those alternative situations, the existing buildings being preserved in one, and then in the event of disaster in two, and the relative conditions that would apply. So at this point, I'd like Fred just to enumerate what those are, and then we'll all be available for any questions. But we do believe that, given the robust discussion last month, that we had a clear understanding of the commission's concerns, and believe that these amendments put us in a position to move forward with the case. If Fred Belladin could be unmuted, please.
Sure. Thanks, Jamie. Good morning, Commission. So at the last meeting,
Fred, sorry, Fred, I want to interrupt for just 1 second and let the commissioners know that the memo that had been uploaded on Friday, I had a dyslexic moment. So the wrong memo was up there. So at any point after Fred has spoken, if you want me to pull up the correct memo, the new one's up there now, then I can do that. But now I'll be quiet and let Fred talk.
good morning. So we believe we heard 3 questions or concerns at the last meeting, and we've tried to address those with changes to the conditions. As part of that, we've reconfigured the conditions to try to be a little more clear. We had essentially been working from the 2018 rezoning structure initially for continuity, but it got a little confusing. So at its root, condition 1 addresses the treatment of the existing historic buildings. It basically outlines, as we discussed at the last meeting, that at a minimum, the first 85 feet will be preserved. And the preservation is clarified to indicate that that includes the overall height and massing, including the preservation of the masonry walls, and including repair or replacement of the windows to maintain the original appearance. It also clarifies that there will be no construction on top, no rooftop additions above those existing buildings for the first 85 feet. Condition 2 speaks to the existing buildings in the event of disaster. From last meeting, it clarifies that this occurs only if there is greater than 50% of the replacement cost of the building. And in that scenario, basically these structures may be removed and replaced with new construction up to 5 stories in height. If those new buildings are constructed, they would still meet the material requirements that we outlined within the overall building development. So I believe we've addressed everything that we heard at the first meeting, but I'm happy to answer any questions or dive in more detail if helpful.
Thanks, Fred. Tanya, could you kindly pull up the document that you referenced that was not available to us, and go to the page in which it has staff comments or the equivalent of the staff comments? I just want to see the language that was used.
Yes, just 1 moment, please.
In the meantime, it's nice to see all y'all today. That's it. And full page, please. And can you, if it's not the same as the one I'm looking at and you tell me it's not, then can you go to the part of what staff comments down page 4, it looks like maybe? There you go. And can you enlarge that, please? Thank you very much. Can you read that, Commission? I just wanted to remind myself what the staff's comments were on the revised document. Now, Commission members, do you have questions for the applicant? We had a rather robust discussion previously, but let's think of any new questions we may have. Janine?
Was there any new thoughts or provisions regarding the Secretary of Interior standards being met? I think that was part of our concern last time, that it seemed like we were absolving them of following those standards.
Sure. Janine, this is Fred again. Basically, what we're doing in condition 1B is clarifying what we're preserving with those existing buildings in lieu of the overall secretary standards. So basically, we are committing to preserving the overall form and massing of the building, including all of the perimeter exterior brick walls with the masonry openings. And we're committing to either repairing or replacing the existing windows to match the pattern and appearance of the existing windows. And we're committing to no rooftop addition, which is actually stricter than the Park Service standards.
Thank you.
Other commission questions? I know.
Gaston, I've got one.
Yes, sir.
Fred, again, I'm going back to the question about, is that 1B based on if there's some catastrophic loss of the buildings, or does that stay in place regardless of the loss of the buildings?
So condition 1 speaks to the development plan for the existing buildings. Condition 1 is what will be followed unless there is catastrophic damage to the buildings.
Okay.
Only in the event of catastrophic damage would condition 2 come into play.
Okay. And why, again, I keep going back, what's the pain about keeping it to the interior standards?
The interior standards were a very specific item that Steve wanted to follow because of all of the work that he had done throughout his career. But
Right.
that is, and I'll ask Tanya to weigh in on that, it's a highly unusual zoning condition. So rather than speaking to that, we're trying to speak to what this developer is comfortable in terms of preservation. And as I said, we're essentially meeting the bulk of the interior standards, actually being stricter in terms of the rooftop additions.
So it's a change of attitude from what you had before.
I don't know that I would call it a change in attitude. Again, Park Service standards is an atypical zoning condition. For a lot of this is trying to define clearly in language what specific elements we're preserving as opposed to tying it to a general standard.
Okay. Does that mean that that if you don't follow the standards, it's no longer under historical relevance?
I'm not entirely sure how to answer that. Right now, these are existing contributing buildings to a National Register district. So,
and I guess my question is, does 1B compromise that?
In 1B, which is catastrophic damage, the building.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Then if it's not, by not following the interior standards and going off line with that, does it compromise the historical nature of the buildings in terms of it being contributing?
Tanya, I might ask you to weigh in on this. I don't know that I can speak for the Park Service on this. In my mind, what we're doing with the exterior is consistent with the Park Service standards.
And and I'd love to hear Tanya's input. If I could just make one observation that the contributing structures were deemed contributing, I believe, before the 2019 zoning case was pursued. And so to Fred's point, I think it's not a change in attitude, it's delivering the same intent with a different way of writing those zoning conditions, both of which are two paths to the same overall goal, which is honoring those contributing structures.
Well,
Tanya? Oh.
I guess my question is, I agree. I understand that. It still doesn't answer my question though. Does it compromise the historical contribution that these buildings have right now? I mean, in terms of in the way future, if someone wanted to have access to the benefits of those being contributing structures, would they be able to?
John, this is Erin. That is a question that only the Park Service can answer. I can tell you that condition 1B speaks specifically to the existing exterior materials of that historic building envelope, with the exception of allowing for the replacement of all of the windows, but it has specified that the existing appearance and pattern would be maintained. Presumably the material might change. I think the biggest difference in the conditions offered currently and the ability to look at this through the lens of the Secretary of Interior standards is that this is geared specifically to the exterior of the building. These are already above and beyond most rezoning conditions we would get to see. That's true. I think in terms of losing their historic significance, their contributing status in the National Register District, that depends on the Park Service and what kind of additions are placed on the back half of the building. And it's too tricky to say without seeing what happens to the project.
I think you kind of helped me understand a little bit more. What I'm hearing is that if they follow the interior standards, that the cost of replacing the windows that are wood right now would be astronomically so high that they couldn't do it.
John, this is Fred.
I don't believe that's the case.
Oh, okay.
All right, stand by for a second. When you speak to the discussion, please make sure we know your name because it doesn't show up in our recorded history here. All right, please go ahead.
Okay. And I think I understand now. I have some confidence and some less heartburn about proceeding forward with this. I really would like to, just for my own knowledge, find out what long-term implications this has. That's all.
Other commission comments, questions, follow up to John's comments by the applicant?
Yep. This is Katie Pate. I see, John, where you're coming from with the concern about changing the interior standards. I would be more concerned if using the Secretary of Interior standards were typical for preservation related zoning conditions. But in this case, I feel like the amended conditions by the applicant are serving well the requests that we made during our discussion last time. So I'm personally comfortable moving forward with the new conditions.
All right, I'm interested in receiving a motion from the commission. This needs to have some magic language in it, or it needs to reference the matter. Curtis, do you have magic language that you can suggest, or enough to create the record that we need and attach it to the matter?
Well, the question before us, I believe, is what we recommend to Planning Commission. Yep. They do. So I think our recommendation should be that they approve the amended zoning conditions as proposed today, and not to put it in non-lawyerly language, but I believe that is what we want to do. Yes.
Tanya, will that minimal language Curtis has proposed in his motion satisfy the record needs?
It does, and typically what staff does is rework the staff memo with all of the information, inputting in any comments that you had today that support the vote.
So our discussions at least are represented in our motion going forward. They'll see what we talked about, some of the issues we raised, and the fact that we approved this going forward to them, right? Is there a second to Curtis's motion? Seconded by Janine and John Reese simultaneously. Any further discussion we need? Everybody understand what we're voting on? We're voting to approve and send this forward to the Planning Commission with a positive recommendation. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. The vote is unanimous, and I think, Ian, are you not vote? Yeah, okay. It's unanimous and approved. Good luck with the project. And I do note, for all the dog lovers in the world, I guess one dog waste station is good enough, but man, I'm glad it made it into the final conditions.
And thank you for amending and keeping to our comments. I appreciate that effort.
And thank you for the thoughtful conversation to the commission. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.
Yeah. Next matter is item C. 4C is a rezoning case of 509 North Street, et cetera, and Glenwood Avenue. Yes, that's where we are. Okay. Colette, are you with us today? No?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. This is Colette, and before we get to JP and his presentation, I will go over a few things as to why this is before you. So as Gaston mentioned, this is 509, 517, 519 West North, and 300, 304, and 306 Glenwood. It is located across the street to the south of the block that contains the former Pine State Creamery, Raleigh Historic Landmark. This site is also part of a National Register identified district, the Central Raleigh Historic District. It has a determination of eligibility of 1999, but as of 2009, that eligibility is in question. And the State Historic Preservation Office does not believe that the area would be found eligible for National Register status if an application were to be submitted. Additionally, due to the influx of large new buildings in the area, it's unlikely that even the properties individually would be eligible for National Register status or for designation as a Raleigh Historic Landmark. So we bring this to you to decide if you want to comment with that new information. You do not have to provide a recommendation, but I'll pass it to JP.
Thanks, Colette. This is JP Mantzoff, case planner for this rezoning. And so Z8721 is a request to rezone 6 parcels that total just over an acre in size from downtown mixed use 7 stories with a shop front frontage to downtown mixed use 40 stories with a shop front frontage and zoning conditions. Next slide. Looking at the broader area, zoning is generally DX east of Glenwood with heights ranging from 7 to 40 stories. West of Glenwood, zoning is generally commercial mixed use and office mixed use between 3 and 7 stories, with the North Boylan NCOD also mapped just to the west of the site. Next slide. Here's an aerial to give some context of the location. So the request consists of 6 of the 7 parcels on the block bounded by West North Street, Glenwood Avenue, and West Lane Street. There are several mixed use and apartment buildings in the immediate area. And just to the north is a creamery development site, which was rezoned in case Z2820 to 40 stories. Next slide. Here are some street views of the site. So in the upper left corner is a view looking east on West North Street, which is the northern boundary of the site. In the upper right corner is a view looking east on West Lane Street, which is the southern boundary of the site. And then the other 2 street views show a couple of shots of the frontage along Glenwood Avenue. Next slide. So this is a comparison of existing versus proposed entitlement as generated by the Envision Tomorrow software. Residential density and office entitlement would increase. Retail here is shown decreasing, though it's largely a result of the software allocating parking to these different uses. And so that retail entitlement would likely stay the same in reality. Next slide. There is one condition currently included in the rezoning case. It prohibits a handful of uses that would otherwise be allowed in the DX district. And that's all I have for today. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners? Okay, there are no questions. as I understand it, our position on this is to receive this as information and do nothing, or to do what? Tanya?
This is Colette. Yeah, so you can choose not to provide any comment if you desire. You can also, choose to make a recommendation. I think in the staff memo, the only condition we might encourage you to consider discussing would be one that stipulates that the similar materials be used, to provide a contiguous character along the storefront or, some of the upper levels. But that would be really the only discussion point that we would encourage on this.
The applicant's attorney, Molly Stewart, is on the line if you have any questions.
Hang on, Molly, for a second. And Aaron, and Colette, is this at the page 3 of your report under comments?
I do not know exactly the page number, but likely.
Okay, well, it's likely. I'm looking at it. Okay. Characteristics. Yeah. Any the applicant you wish to speak to encourage us to do something or else?
Thank you. Good morning, Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group. So, I didn't submit a presentation for today. This is a situation of, an owner kind of trying to understand where this part of town is today and what's appropriate here. And so we are really primarily here to listen and hear of any concerns. We're I think a little bit surprised to be here just because, the lack of historic resources in the area, but we certainly just want to hear your comments today. Thank you.
Comments, commissioners? I have no comments. Yes, Curtis?
Just looking down staff's memo, relevant comprehensive plan policies, HB 11 stewardship of place. I don't see how, given that the state has basically said this isn't really listable, I don't see that we necessarily should have an attitude on this. Cultural and historic resource preservation, if it's not listable, that's kind of not impacted. 2.7 mitigating impacts on historic sites. That's the one spot where perhaps we could look at an issue just because of the shadowing from a 40-story building on the creamery. But, is that, I don't know that that's that strong a thing. And 3.4 context sensitive design, which I believe is what Colette was responding to. I think it's questionable how much of that character is left on the site, frankly, and surrounding. My inclination would be to just let this pass without comment. That's where I stand.
I think maybe a motion to do nothing is not particularly envisioned by Robert's Rules of Orders, but anybody object to receiving this as information and not taking a position on the record unless requested in the future to do so? Would that be an appropriate disposition? Tanya, you guide me here. I'm kind of new to this.
Yes, that would be perfectly acceptable.
All right, hearing no objection, the consensus of the commission is that we've received the information, we've received the concerns of staff, particularly those in the 3-page report, and we appreciate receiving this information. On to the next item. Any question from the applicant? Any residual questions? I kind of closed it out without asking you for a final comment.
None, thank you.
Okay, recombination case next, item D. No action is required. Colette, I think you're on this matter. Do you want to kind of?
Yes, that is correct. So this is a recombination request for 1207 Pierce Street, which is located in the Glenwood, Brooklyn Historic Overlay District. Recombinations are a curious item where it comes to you for review only. You do not take a vote or make any official decision. You just get to look at it and make any comments to the applicant if you feel that they are warranted. The recombination proposed plat was posted on board docs, and the request is simply to remove a historic ghost property line. This is pretty typical. It will not change what you see today on the existing lot. You know, if you were to pass by on the street, you would think that the lot was what is being proposed. You would not notice that it was divided into two. So this is a pretty standard request. If you have any comments, I believe that we do have the property owner here if you would like to ask any questions. But you've seen it. Your review is complete. Unless you have anything that you'd like to share.
So in Muggle terms, this means that they're just tidying up the record.
That's correct. That is exactly right.
Doesn't change anything, just kind of refreshing and taking out the unnecessary markers that are in the historic record.
Correct.
And to add my 2 cents, there are a lot of properties in some of those national head register districts in that area that have underlying ghost lot lines, and I think we should be all for those ghost lot lines disappearing and those properties being recombined. So I applaud the applicant for doing this. It's a nice preservation move.
Thank you, applicant, and you can be assured that the commission is all in favor of removing ghost lot lines, but in favor of ghosts. So, any questions to resolve that? Okay, thank you again, applicant. Good luck with your ghost.
Thank you very much.
There are no right-of-way closures on the agenda, I believe. Certified local government duties, CLG report.
Hello, Tanya Tully here. If you had a chance to read through the certified local government report, it reports on the activities that have taken place, that took place from October 1, 2020 through September 30th of 2021. Doing an annual report is one of the duties of the commission, and staff filled it out on your behalf. So I'm offering it to you to officially accept it. Ask me any questions, and you'll see us again in hopefully December instead of January.
Any questions about the report that was organized by staff on our behalf of all the wonderful things we've done that no one would know about unless we reported them? Okay, if there are any questions, let us know later. Tanya, thank you for the staff for this. I know as a part of my former job, filling out reports that are required sometimes seem to be frustrating exercise and waste of time, but they also turned out to be very important to the overall mission of the organization. So thank you very much for the care it was given. Historic landmark designation application, there are none. National Register nomination, there are none at this time. Officer elections. I guess this is me, isn't it? Okay, the nomination committee is being formed and being reactivated. Harold Malat is not here today. The rest of us that are on the committee, myself, Travis, and participating remotely was Katie Pate and Janine, excuse me. As you guys may know, that Susan Singer left left the commission on the end of the year, 12/31/2021, and Janine's last technical day is tomorrow, the 19th, 2022, and her term does not expire until June 30th, 2022. As sometimes happened with very good people on these commissions and volunteers, they get overloaded, and we appreciate all their work. To date, we fully understand their need to pull back a little bit from some of their commitments. We appreciate their past work. To that end, the committee recommends that Katie Pate uh, be approved to become the vice chair of the commission, and that we seek out the two vacancies and seek out someone to be the um, secretary treasurer of the organization. We've talked about this to Katie. She's willing to serve. Just to remind you of her background, she is a BA in English, and she did very well on her school marks at Appalachian State University. She has a concentration in technical, professional, business, and scientific writing, and a minor in Spanish. She went to Broughton High School. She is a fifth generation Raleighite, as she traces her history back. And I'd like to read her comments in her letter to us of January 21st, 2019. I brand myself as a fifth generation Raleighite, which is true to the extent that I have not been able to trace my family history beyond 5 generations. But for several decades, my great-grandmother owned a property in 5 Points, which serves as a reminder of her, and I drive past each day. Every block in the city has a passed down story and a sense of family attached to it. Working to preserve and promote Raleigh history is an act of preserving my own history. That was in her letter that was sent to us. She has a working proficiency in Spanish, which is good, and she has nominal skills in American Sign Language. So she has things that would make her a complimentary, a good person to be vice chairman of the organization. Having said all that, any questions? The motion is coming from a committee. Technically, it doesn't need a motion or a second. The committee's recommending that you approve Katie Pate as the vice chair of the organization. Any questions or discussions that you would like to have? Now, Tanya, if you don't agree with my interpretation of Robert's Rules of Order, we'll take a motion and second and do it that way too. How are you on that?
Yes, and this is Erin. Tanya stepped away for a moment, but I believe that that is the correct approach.
All right. I see no shaking of heads. Otherwise, Katie, do you have any last moment comments here you'd like to make?
Just thank you for the opportunity, and I need to send you guys an updated resume because a lot of stuff in the last 3 years. So I work for an architecture firm now. I work for HH Architecture. So I'm also in the industry, and love it, and it's great, and yeah, look forward to continuing to serve.
All those in favor of approving Catherine M. Pate as the vice chair of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission signify by raising a hand. Any opposed? Okay, there's one abstention. Katie didn't vote on her own nomination for the record, but she is approved as the vice chair. Katie, thank you very much for your work. And I think Katie represents our future in many ways, and I think we should be very thankful we have a qualified younger than I am, which is everybody, but working with the commission.
Thank you. Appreciate it, everyone.
Let's see, 60th anniversary, some exciting stuff going on. I think that, who's going to lead us in this discussion? Kate, Heather, did you get a chance to catch up with everything? Are you going to talk to this, or is Travis?
I can talk about, obviously I missed the last meeting. So if there's something new from the
start and let Travis finish. How about that? Real quick.
Okay. That sounds like a plan, because I did talk about it to the executive committee, and it's going to be similar to what I talked about there. So thank you everybody for submitting ideas. You definitely gave us, we weren't sure how big or how small initially that we wanted to do this, and we got some great ideas showing us that you guys really did want to go really big with this. So we've decided that, we'll do something larger. In order to help reach as many people as we can, we want to do a pop-up during the weekend of Artsplosure. That way we've already got all these great people downtown. We were talking about working with perhaps the Core Museum. And there might have been an update on that since then. I know we were going to reach out to Ernie because the Core Museum, of course, is right there. on Fayetteville Street. So during our exposure, we'll just be right there with the crowds. We can sort of bring people inside. And it'll also give us a great space to do anything that we want to do. Now, we were talking about having, obviously different freebies to give away to bring people in, perhaps having games for people to do like a scavenger hunt. And we also were talking about perhaps even selling. I don't know where we ended up landing on that. Tanya and Gaston, you might know, but I know we had been talking about perhaps selling historic images on, whether t-shirts or posters or such things. We also plan to just kind of have a space where people can come in. We could have everything kind of like a day of events. We plan to be there several hours, so we might even have maybe an hour there where people could come in and we could promote that we'll be talking about things that we've done over the past several years to a decade, so that people are familiar with what we work on. We could have a presentation on history. We could do a walking tour from that site. So there's a lot of things we could do from that location. But we are planning to do it during our exposure weekend. And Travis, what am I missing from the previous meeting?
I don't think anything really changed from the art exposure piece or on the NFT auction. We just kind of rehashed some things and verified that we were going to continue on with those dates. And then I think we were discussing what days or day of the festival we were going to do the event.
And we will also need volunteers to be there. We want to be there from 11 to 5. So we'd love volunteers that could come up for maybe 2 to 3 hour shifts. We also would love to get your ideas, now that we have a better idea of when and where we're going to do the event. We would love your ideas on things we should and could do from that location, right? So again, we could do anything from walking tours to perhaps even having a presentation in the museum, right, where people could come in. We can promote all of this on social media so people will know that it's happening. I definitely think we should offer some kind of tour if we can, or at least some kind of really cool history presentation with maybe archival images. Ian, maybe you could pull together some images for us. Maybe if you want to give a talk, we can really do anything we want. I think we have had some suggestions to maybe talk about some of our big wins, and of course to invite people. Hopefully, if we have kind of our own space within Core Museum, we can do some programming in that space during that time. And I know that we had gotten some suggestions to invite previous commissioners, to invite other local leaders, and perhaps we could have some kind of programming that we invite people to come to that, while also having some more kind of hyper engaging communal activity that we could bring in people from Art Explosion to come, do our games or scavenger hunts or whatever.
Chair and Heather, this is Erin, would y'all mind if I just added a comment here?
Sure.
So the Community Awareness Committee is working through all of the options, kind of packing in everything we can handle at this table between now and May. So if you've got any ideas you want us to discuss at our next meeting, definitely email Heather and myself, and we will put it on our agenda. The big takeaway for the rest of the commission this morning is to mark your calendars for May 21st from 11 to 5. We'll be at the Core Museum. And we'll be, Gaston and Katie, I still need to get back with you two on your visit to get the details of that and confirm and finalize that location. But
yeah, Erin, actually, and when we spoke to them at the Core Museum, they said that 10 to 4 would be the hours that they're available as opposed to 11 to 5.
Well, there you have it. So mark your calendars from 10 to 4. We would definitely appreciate commissioners that can come out and volunteer their time at the booth. We will get everything set up for you as the Community Awareness Committee, and you will be totally aware of everything going on. You just have to be a warm, friendly body. um,
Oh, and
just be aware. And Travis, I know that because we're working toward that NFT, there was some business for the full commission that we needed to discuss on the accounting side. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so given recent tax treatment changes to how cryptocurrency is taxed, there's a significant advantage to if we proceeded with the NFT auction, leveraging the commission's nonprofit status to open an account with one of the cryptocurrency exchanges. For those who are unfamiliar with, when you're dealing with cryptocurrency or anything of value within the cryptocurrency world, you usually want to have a method to take it from cryptocurrency to regular fiat currency. In our case, that'd be US dollars. So to facilitate that, if we were to say generate an NFT, sell it at auction, and we receive Ethereum is like the main one we'd probably be working with. We receive 2 Ethereum for an NFT. Well, that's great, but we want to put it into dollars so we can make use of it. We would need to go to an exchange like Coinbase or Binance, send them our cryptocurrency, sell it for US currency, and then transfer that to a bank account. In order to do that, we would need an account with one of those cryptocurrency exchanges. And I believe the discussion in the Community Awareness Committee was we would need to vote to create, to submit the paperwork for creation of one of these accounts with one of these exchanges as a nonprofit in order to make it possible for us to convert from cryptocurrency to US currency. And that process can take a bit of time. Like for my own LLC that I've been doing cryptocurrency with, it took me, I think, about 3 months, 4 months to set up one with Binance. For Coinbase, which is the most popular exchange, I've had the application in for 9 months now. And I'm still waiting for a response from them. So if we do decide, or if the NFT auction for raising funds is of interest, starting the application process with one of these exchanges now would be very prudent, given Artsplosure is not an immediate future, but it's coming up pretty quickly.
May I suggest that we roll this back to the Community Awareness Committee, have them repackage it for us and present it. There's just not enough space on our current agenda to have a discussion at this time, a full discussion. But can you roll that back to the Community Awareness and then maybe give us a short memo, or however you want to do it? Tell us what we're doing in May. The tour that Katie and I took of the City of Raleigh Museum it's perfectly suited for this purpose because it doesn't require us to commit any infrastructure. They have tables and chairs that we can use, including tablecloths, for whatever we want there. And they also have in place 2 projection systems. So all we have to do is have an appropriate, we can attach into their existing system there. So it'll be a good opportunity. Maybe Heather, work with Travis to brighten up the NFT proposal, and if we need to vote in the interim, if we will by electronically if we have to, just to move it forward. But I need something more specific.
And I think getting some information on any costs or what are any potential downsides to doing this, if there are any. I can't imagine what they would be, but if there are, that would be helpful to know.
And I suspect the city attorney's office might want to be notified of our thinking, just in case they want to get involved in something else.
Gaston, this is Erin. Just to bring it back up in case you had moved on, or I'm not sure if you just wanted to throw it out there and touch it be ready at the next meeting with nominations. But since we're talking about accounting, we do have the secretary treasurer position to fill.
I'm throwing that back to the nominations committee to fill the 2 vacant positions and to solicit from our current commissioners or the 2 new commissioners to fill those gaps and have a proposal at the next meeting, if not before. George Smart, you're on the agenda as speaking, but I don't see on the agenda that I'm looking at, and that's why I was distracted for a moment, what you're speaking to. Are you still?
Yes, I'm here to talk about 3104 Churchill to bring this to the awareness of the committee.
All right, stand by for a second. Staff, can you help me? I'm lost in the agenda. Where am I supposed to be? What item number?
Gaston, this is Colette. There is not an item number specifically. It could be public comment. It also could relate to the research committee did discuss this property at their meeting this month as well.
Okay, George, we're short on time, but we'd love to hear a summary of your concerns and comments on the property of interest to you on Churchill.
Thank you very much. My name is George Smart. I'm the executive director of North Carolina Modernist Houses. We are a nonprofit to preserve modern architecture throughout North Carolina, specifically in residential. Before the Beatles, before the Rolling Stones, Brian Shawcroft rolled into town in the early 1960s and became a sensation in residential architecture. He designed about 50 modernist houses across North Carolina. One of those is at 3104 Churchill, the McVeigh House, which was done in the early 80s. The house is approximately 40 years old. The last owner of the house died last year. The house was given to the attorney to settle. The attorney sold it off market to a developer named Ryan Spate for $840,000 in this past December. Mr. Spade has indicated he is going to tear it down by the end of February and put up a multi-million-dollar home on the site. We have a buyer for the property at $1,040,000, possibly a little higher. We're trying to persuade Mr. Spite to take the $200,000 and run and develop possibly somewhere else. I'm here today to bring this to your attention, knowing there's nothing officially that this group can do with regard to this, but informally to spread the word about this and to try to encourage Mr. Spite to consider this offer and preserve the house. We have had one of our folks inside the house. It is in excellent condition. It needs the normal repairs for a 40-year-old house, but is very, very savable. And one of the things that is unique about this house, it was one of the very first homes created for a ADA type person. The only modernist house of its type in Raleigh in the 1980s, because the original owner was in a wheelchair. So that's something that is quite special about this house, in addition to it being designed by Brian Shawcroft. Thank you very much.
The street address on Churchill, please.
3104.
Oh, I thought your name sounded familiar. Do you run NC Modernist?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, cool. I love your website.
Thank you.
And a further description, Heather, can you stack that in the chat section real quick? Can you hop on there and get his website and give us the link? Because it's really quite good right now. And George goes into some detail about this house on his website right now. I think
Tanya Tully here. Chat is turned off for public record purposes. We will be sure to send you the link in a follow-up email.
All right.
So
anybody, what have I missed on the George? Thank you very much for alerting this. I think I know the preceding owners to the preceding owners who used to live in this house. It's if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's rather grand and
yes,
it's a little postmodernist plus Frank Lloyd Wright thrown in a little bit on the side in my humble.
It's really gorgeous on the inside.
Yeah. What have I missed off? Let's go through the reminders. We have no minutes left. Public comment. Are there any members of the public that we haven't recognized for comments? I'm going to defer without objection the reports of the committees unless there's something urgent that needs to be brought to our attention. Seeing no objection, we'll defer those to the next time.
Tanya here confirming that there is no one else signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. Please pay attention to the item 11, news of other organizations, opportunities, meeting dates, etc., that are indicated in the agenda toward the end of it.
Yep, and Tanya here bumping in one more time to remind you of the February 1st joint public hearing with City Council for the 2 landmark designation applications that are in the works. It'll be at 7 p.m. It will be virtual, more to come.
All right, and you're going to send me a vector file.
Yes.
Okay. We are working on enlargement as a gift to one of our former leaders. It's in the process, and more on that later when we're not in a public setting. Any other questions, comments? I'm going to send out a Survey Monkey or something to the equivalent. I haven't composed it yet. I do have an account. I want your feedback on how you would like our meetings to run in the future, comments, criticisms, positive suggestions. We want to try to, I would like some input on how you like your meetings run and whether we can make any improvements for your benefit, for the benefit of the commission, actually. Any questions? Final comments? Let's see, everybody looks good today. We're all here, okay. Ian, I like your office. Think we ought to have a tour of the archives someday. When we can venture out, we'll put on masks and we'll have breakfast and or carry breakfast in and see if Ian will give us a tour of his lair there. It looks very inviting, all those files behind him. All right, good health, good day. See you, everyone. Thanks to all the public participants for coming to the meeting today, if you're still there. We appreciate your input.